this evening at Real Estate TO. I think it's going to be a good conversation. So why don't we start with your career journey up until this point, right? Right now you have so much commercial sales experience. You're a top broker at Royal LePage Commercial, Canada. How did it all start? Like, what happened during your educational experience? Where did your career journey take you, and how did you end up where you are today?
Good question. I grew up, I'm from Toronto. Family's from Trinidad and Tobago, but I'm born here in Toronto. And I grew up part of my life in the west end of the city, Corso Italia, and then I moved to Scarborough in Melbourne, so where I grew up. Even in high school, I went to a school called Mother Teresa in Scarborough. I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to work for myself, so if it was like a computer company, entertainment company, I was doing it in high school, and even leaving high school, I still wanted to run my own business. So for me to figure that out and really try to say, okay, well, how can I, make my dreams a reality, and how can I make that all happen? You try to find your passions, but you also try to find out what is going to be lucrative and what's going to make a good amount of money as well. So, which got me into sales. So started off in phone sales from working in Pizza Nova's call center, all the way to working for a promotional advertising company for 3 years, selling to companies in the US and Australia, and got my bearings there in terms of talking to people I don't know and who didn't know me. And then since I had a tech background in terms of building computers and selling computers, I wanted to take it to another level, and I applied for a software job. And at 21, I didn't go through the same angle of graduating from high school and going straight to getting your undergrad. And I had to make money for my mom and myself, so I went straight into the working world, and I worked for a startup software company that took off for 6 years, where we're selling corporate risk management software to companies in the US. So I had the opportunity at that time to manage like 11 states and selling to Fortune 500 companies and showing how they can get their value and returns. And that went really well. And then the income was great. Was able to move actually closer to this neighborhood here with my mom at the time. And then I was trying to figure out, what do I do with my money? Like, great, making money and all that stuff, but you can easily spend it. And I remember my father used to invest in real estate. Had a triplex in the west end of the city and all that stuff, and I liked that, collecting rent. And I needed to figure it out. So I was trying to, my first real estate goal was to buy my mom a house. And then I really wanted to learn about real estate, so I scoured the city from checking out, the Robert Kiyosaki real estate event for 3 days. Then there was even a Trump one, and I decided not to do that. And after I got involved with an organization called Real Estate Investment Network, RAIN, who was headed by Don Campbell, and that was really good because it gave me an opportunity to, even though I was young, to go to monthly meetings and connect with a lot of property owners who own a lot of property, like 100 doors, 20 doors, 50 doors, people, and it just got comfortable being around people that actually own properties. So I really do find, you say you want to get into real estate, you want to invest in real estate, and if you own more than one property, you tell your friends that, I'm going to go buy an investment property, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. That's what my coworkers thought. I was crazy. They thought, this place it's gonna, how can you buy one property? The market's crashing, this, that, the other. So I was involved with RAIN for 3 years, and that was my education in real estate coming in, and it gave me enough confidence to max out my RSPs, But and you know, buy my first property. I was gonna buy one here in Toronto, but I found out that I could probably buy two in Durham for the same price, and that's what I did. So I bought. I only started looking for houses that had separate entrances with a basement apartment, the bones for that. So I bought my first place in Pickering, and then since I had enough money to buy a second one, because I was planning to buy in Toronto, I decided to buy two. And I bought two of them, and I ended up getting my fourplex and putting my mom up on the top floor, and the basement was paid for the mortgage. And then that was in 2009 when I was 25. And then I ended up buying, I bought another, and I closed another one in Ajax, same thing, upstairs, downstairs. And after I learned how to raise capital and raise some money, bought another property in Whitby, and did the same thing, converted it to a legal duplex, and I got hooked. Like it was I actually enjoyed it more than selling software, right? So it was really good, because it was like, okay, you always hear you gotta figure out how to make multiple streams of income, and how do you figure that out? And that's what I did. So I enjoyed it so much more, but at the time I was in my career for 6 years, making really good income, and I'm like, how do I get over to the other side? Because I'm kind of like, I'm selling the same software. It's good, going through conventions and traveling to the States every couple of months, all over the States. And I'm like, how do I get onto the other side? Because I'm kind of like, I don't want to do this forever. I want to get more into real estate. And then, a friend of mine said, you might want to get your real estate license. And I used to work right at Donald's in Eglinton with good Ferran over there, and you get a comment from the boss, and you're like, man, I gotta do something, and you gotta try to figure out something. And I remember, looking out of Donald's in Eglinton, seeing cranes outside, and like, how do I get into that world? How do I figure that out? It's like, I've been here and I feel like I'm stuck. And then I decided to drive up to and not Aurea College this time, just register for my license. I tried looking at an internet cafe close by at the time, just to figure out, okay, how can I get into development? And I think there was like a position like VP of Development in Memphis. I realized I had zero qualifications for it, absolutely nothing. So I decided at 6 years, they let me go. I think they thought I was too distracted with real estate. I think the day they let me go was the day before my birthday, and I had an inspector coming to my property. So I actually had time to actually get my stamp and approval for the legal apartment. So I said, great, I went. But it was good though, because even though I left, I still had income. I still had money coming in, and that was, anyone that asked me, I was on a date, and someone said, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a landlord. And he had no job, but it was just, he had some income coming in, which was great. So did that, and then after I was like, okay, should I go back into software where I already have the track record, or do I really try to grunt it out and try to get into real estate? I didn't even have my license at the time. And so I really wanted to get into real estate, and I did not want to leave my corporate background of selling to companies and no nonsense and just the numbers and all that. So I said, I'm gonna get into commercial real estate since I already know residential. And so I applied for a job, got a job to do business development, booked some of the appointments for some of the senior brokers at a commercial firm downtown. So I started I worked for an all commercial firm on Bay Street, down the financial core. And after the first year I got my license, and I started leasing office towers down in the financial core. So that was my in, and it was like a whole different world to me, because it was different than what I was learning on the residential side. And it was good, because I could still apply the stuff that I learned on like corporate risk management software and all that. So I did that for 3 years, and I started doing deals with corporations here with their office space, but I kind of felt stuck again, because I didn't get into the business just to lease space. I got into business because I wanted to sell buildings, and I wanted to sell land, and how to be in development, and that's what made a change for me, leaving what I was doing before, and then going to Royal LePage Commercial, and I've been connected with them since. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And thank you for being so open. I mean, I know I've been let go from a job once, and you just so very casually shared that you were. I mean, you're being
no,
very
it was
open.
the best thing that ever happened.
It did.
Honestly,
in hindsight, but probably that day was.
No, it wasn't that great. It was the day before my birthday when I was really angry. And I had an inspector. I had to make sure that I got approved. So, no, but sometimes. I am a big believer in everything happens for a reason. Things just don't happen, and one day one thing closes, another thing opens. And at the same time, you have to really think about, during those times you get to really figure out what you really want out of life, and what you want out of life, and what you want to go after. And during those moments, you really, really have to have a why of why you're doing what you're doing, because I had a drop in income of at least $100,000, and I had to move back home to get into the business, just because I really wanted to be in the business, and it's not easy to get in commercial and do commercial real estate. Most people go into residential because you have a sphere of influence, and I didn't have anybody that had commercial property. Nobody where I grew up from was buying property or leasing office space. Everything was all cold calls and everything like that. And I still remember driving my convertible, my Mercedes that I got when I was in software, and I don't know what kind of belief I had, because I used to look at my gas tank, and my gas tank used to be the money tank. So if it wasn't full, that means that was like a direct reflection of how much money you were really making. And I was so believing so hard that I was gonna make it back to Pickering, and I did not even make it past Bloor on the DVP, and my gas ran out. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just so sure because I didn't have enough money. I was, trying to, how am I gonna make in commercial real estate? You look good, smell good, and you go downtown, Bay Street, but you're not making nothing. Nothing, and it's like, what the hell am I doing? Do I really want this? I was still looking for a job I was thinking about almost working at Jack Astor's part-time, almost try to work at Four Seasons part-time or call center, just say I'm in real estate just to try to make it over the hump, and that was like one of the toughest periods. But it is certainly really rewarding once you get over the hump and you're in a position to do what you really want to do, and it's great.
So what would you say was the transition point where now you're in commercial real estate, you're grinding it out, something happened that took you from no gas in the tank, literally you cannot make it to where you need to be, to the point where transactions were starting to happen, cash flow was happening, and you're like, okay, this is the role that I really want to stick with, because now, what was the transition point?
I think.
Was it mindset, or was it something that you did?
There's I don't know if you guys ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, but there's a saying. One of my favorite stories in that book, and also that movie, is being able to have the mindset of burning all your ships, where you really know that you want to get to this island, but you have to literally make a decision once you get to that island that you're trying to get to, decide to burn your ships, to actually really realize there's no other option to go back and go for your plan B or plan C or whatever, and saying this is what you really want to do. And what that allows you to do is really just to drop any fear, drop a lot of fear, because you're either going to make it or you're not, and you kind of have that sense of there is no other option but to get what you want and you're not going to be happy. So unless you get there. So I think having a little bit of that, and stop caring what people think about you or what you're going through, and at the same time having an element of not having that fear. Like I think initially when I got into the industry, it was like, okay, I'm trying to fit in because there's not that many people. I was frank. There's not that many people that look like me that are in the commercial space. There's probably like maybe like 10 people in the city.
You know them all.
I know them all. And at the same time, you can't let that be, discourage you. But also just the way you look at it. You look at it as an opportunity for you to stand out, and for people to remember you, for people to see what you're all about, what you're worth, and why you're doing what you're doing, and going from there. I think from doing that and having some success, because like from being downtown, I went back to Durham. I learned how to sell land, started learning how to sell to pig farmers, to different types of buildings, individuals, all that stuff, and all sorts of different properties, and not just being siloed in one area.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure it out, and trying to go after answers and find solutions, and not being scared to ask questions of other people that have been through it, and then it's enabled me to come back into the city and do what we're doing now, and now having our own firm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, within your office right now, tell us about one specific scenario, one specific transaction where you were on the sales side of this building or of this commercial asset, and things really happened. Like there are certain things that you did that really made that transaction happen. Whereas if you were earlier on in your career, you would have just sat on the market.
So I do a lot of high-rise assembly. So I assemble land. So in the city of Toronto, there's not enough land to build. If you want a good piece of the land, you have to go maybe north of the city or the 905, and you can actually, talk to one owner and sell a site. Downtown Toronto, if you want land, you have to assemble it. So that means you have to create land out of nothing, where you're working with multiple owners, helping them maximize their value, understanding what can be built, and doing that. So I had, and I think, some of the most successful transactions that I've had is having that mindset of not giving up, and also having that mindset of looking at things differently, and also having a little bit, not being afraid to use a little bit of your vision to actually think of what can be there before they're not, and also just going through stuff. Like we had, with what we do, we get a lot of no's. We got a lot of people tell you, get off my you can get people that say, get off your property, don't call me back, not interested, and all of that. And with you willing to still keep going at it, can turn things into something really positive. Like we have a corner of Parliament in Richmond. It's like we have a 5-piece assembly at Parliament in Richmond, and it started off with someone calling one of my signs, asking me to come see one of their properties for lease. To lease their property. Now I could have said, well, the building doesn't look that great, I don't want to lease the building. But we still went there. Didn't end up getting the lease listing, but I saw it as a development site. And he wasn't ready to sell, but there was a mechanic shop there, Mercedes mechanic shop. So, I had a broken window on my car, like it wouldn't go down, and I called my mechanic, like, how much does it cost to fix this window? $500. I said, you know what, I'm gonna bring my car to this guy, just to see what he's gonna say. The guy told me $2,500. I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god. But you know what, I still paid, I decided to pay the $2,500 so I can get in the door, okay? And from that, turned into me having a relationship a little bit with the guy, and with that, it allowed me to work on my assembly, and he was there for 60 years, and he ended up just with that one thing turned into another, and people say no. You know, talking about a guy who actually, you know, I gave him an offer and he ripped it up in front of my face, to now, you know, he's inviting me back and he's giving me brios because he's Italian and all that, right? So because now we sold the site, it's like $30 million, and now there's a 40-story proposal that's going to be going up in Marlin and Richmond with it. So not just that, but like just being able to go through the nose and getting through challenges and still not giving up. And that, you know, that's in the middle of COVID and no one wanted to talk to anybody, right? So
Unless you're Italian.
Unless you're Italian, but you can, you can learn, learn a few things. But at the same time, just so I don't go off track with your question. It's just brute force, not taking no for an answer and just going after what you want and believing it, and not having that doubt come in your mind that something can't happen or why can't it be you and all that stuff, and being able to apply that in every area of your life, and also the people that you talk to, and you're able to make things happen that maybe some people didn't believe that could happen.
If someone is here today and they're thinking, okay, I've done residential transactions, I have a number of properties, residential side, I'm thinking about commercial, and if I'm going to get into commercial properties, I would like to figure out, should I be pursuing office, retail, multifamily, land, why should I be looking at acquiring in the Greater Toronto area, which at the end of the day, 10, 20, 40, 50 years down the line, I can turn around and say, I've actually maximized the dollars that I put in with the vision of what I'll be able to get at the end of the day down the line when I want to pull out from this particular transaction. Do you have a thought process where somebody comes to you and says, I have X millions of dollars that I'm able to pull together, maybe for my family, however it works out, and with these funds, where should I put these if I was to invest them in commercial real estate? How would you think with them through that process as to what kind of asset type could potentially make sense? If you ever have that conversation.
So I have like the conversations I have, because I'm also an investor. So I'm a landlord. I am a landlord. I'm an investor. I've been an investor for a long time, and also commercial. It depends on where they're at. Like if they want to invest here in Toronto, it's hard to get cash flow here in Toronto, especially with the interest rates that are here right now. It depends on the budget that they're working with. Like if it's me and I'm looking to spend $2.5 million on something, maybe I might look at something where either some mixed-use type property on a main strip where there's good transportation, new developments happening, GO train, LRT, stuff that's happening that maybe might be positioned later on as a future development site. So now when you're selling the property, it's not just as what it is per square foot, but it's also potentially of what it could be from a developer putting something together, right? And also keeping in mind what the densities are in that area, making sure it's not an area where they only allow like 5-6 stories in it. That's one thing. It's all about the extra value add, and that's what you have to look at in Toronto, because a lot of the stuff in Toronto unfortunately doesn't make sense. Like if you want to buy cash flow in property, like a lot of stuff you have to like literally go further outside of the city. Like I like retail plazas that have some upside potential development later on. Apartments are great. They don't trade as often when you start looking at larger apartment buildings. But they're great, but it's capped in terms of what you can do, right? Like I bought a site out in Peterborough. I bought like a quarter of a city block out there where was an assembly, and I have 4 commercial tenants, got 5 apartments, we have a 30-car parking lot, saw some value, got it for like $2.5 million, but it's also on the official plan for a high-rise. So we're in the process now of putting my first project together and maximizing the value of that property while still collecting income at the same time. It's no different than all these malls that are here. They're all positioning themselves to maximize value of their plazas or malls. Eglinton Square, they got the mall, they got proposal in the parking lot, Yorkdale, they're doing the same thing, they're trying to maximize the value of
Pacific Mall is trying to do that too.
Pacific, every mall, every single place is trying to do that, and you know, that's where we come in, like, we understand that, it's not just, we're not just selling properties, like, we understand how planners think, we understand what's going on in the city, where developments are happening, what you can achieve, and that's how we're able to bring that back to owners that are not typically thinking about that, and also understanding it from a development perspective to maximize and pull out that value, or even putting things together where it might be challenging for them to do it on their own.
That's great. It's really insightful. Any questions? Any one of you has a train of thought, any question around commercial real estate sales?
I just have a quick comment. I just love that your mom motivated me to start doing all of this.
Thank you.
Right now it's my mom as well. She have not a very, she have a lung issue right now. So I'm trying to do something so I can help with her healthcare, and she's my motivation right now. So that's just beautiful to hear today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question, but
Yep.
it is not good question. You are the commercial agent.
Yeah.
You have listing.
Mm-hmm.
Why it is so difficult to reach commercial agent? Why it is
You call them on the
to
weekend?
reach them?
If you, if the one thing with, okay, so commercial agents, they are cut from, they're a little bit different, okay, like they, you know, they're much more corporate than they are with, like, it is two different lifestyles.
Yeah.
As a residential agent and a commercial agent. A lot of the commercial agents, if you typically have to, a lot of them won't pick up their phone after 5, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
They will not talk to you on the weekend unless there's something really happening, and they will not respond to an irrevocable in 24 hours, right? most of the time, right? Because of that. So it's not, it just depends on the agent that you're talking to, but usually most of the stuff happens 9 to 5 during the day, and it's just the culture of that. They're much more set up like a law firm in a sense, and it just depends on what you say to them. I guess, like, I can't say that, I can't paint that brush for everyone. Like, if you call me, I deal with it. We have plazas all over the GTA that we lease, we sell. It's not just land and development, like, we do all sorts of stuff. So we deal with them all, right? So it really depends on the agent that you're dealing with. But there's some cocky, there's some, I'll use a different word for it, but there's some. Pardon me?
Is there any prejudice when the residential agent calling to commercial agent? You know, they say, you know, is not commercial agent, you know, it is very difficult to deal with them or something.
It depends. Like, it depends on how you, if you have, like, a lot of commercial agents don't want to be doing the work for another agent, and a lot of times, no, not all, okay, but a lot of, some residential agents don't know what they're doing, so when they give offers, that's, say, like on a, like a lease offer, for example, on an OREA form, where they usually type out their whole offer, they don't want to respond to that. They don't want to respond to stuff that they feel like they have to do your work while you're getting paid for it, right? Not all the time, but it does happen. Like, we've seen that even with major landlords too. Like, you know, like any of the major landlords that are out there, they want to make sure it's done in a certain way that's like similar to like if a lawyer were to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So, but it's not like that all the time. They're not going to say, like, if you call me and you tell me you're a residential agent, I'm not going to say I'm not going to deal with you because you're a residential agent. There's a lot of great residential agents out there across the board that know their stuff. But again, it depends on who you're dealing with.
And also, if you have, because I navigate both, if you have a legit buyer or a legit tenant, like, they'll converse.
I
But
don't
like,
know.
they're also kind of doing the screening.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm with him, like,
Yeah.
I have been dealing with this one one commercial agent for so long right now, it's been months. She asked me to send her the bullet points to get the offer done, and I was like, okay, no problem, I sent her bullet points. I sent her my tenant's qualifications, a great tenant. I told her, I was like, well, why don't you put something on paper and I'll see if my tenant will agree, because I had already put something on paper for her. Dude, I'm on vacation until January 8th, I'll call you after that.
vacation.
I don't hear
On
from
vacation?
her.
Now, so some people, like not, like some people, like even, I have commercial agents that I don't really like to deal with, right?
Yeah,
So it's not a residential versus commercial thing, it just depends on who you're dealing with. That's what I would say.
the person I've been dealing with is a broker of record, so like I don't even know how to, like, who else do I speak to, you know, for this property that my client, who's amazing, really wants, right?
You'll see a lot of commercial agents, if they're good listings, like really good listings, sometimes they won't pay commissions. Sometimes they will try to market it directly to their group of buyers first before it gets out there. It depends on the listing sometimes.
Or if
Sometimes
they want to double end it.
they'll double end, a lot of double ends happen in commercial. A lot of things don't even show up on MLS. A lot of listings are not even on MLS.
This listing's not on MLS, the one
Right.
that I'm trying to get.
So,
Let's talk about maximizing the value of selling your building.
okay.
I'm curious, what are other tips besides trying to look for the highest value use of the building? Besides that?
Well, it depends on the bit, like, it depends on, it's not one size fits all, it depends on the asset class, like, is there a certain.
Oh, the particular one I'm thinking of, just a plaza, strip plaza.
Strip plaza right now, the highest and best use, there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, making sure that you have demolition clauses in all the leases, if you're a landlord, insured of that, because I've had plazas for sale that they decided to, give someone 15-year options for a no-name restaurant, and it's on a development strip, and you could have gotten them so much more money on a development value, but now because it's tied up for 15 years in the lease, now you can only give them a cap rate value because it's no longer a development site, because developers want to be able to develop it within 3 years to get approval, and they can't get financing to give you that type of money for it. If it's that, it's also maximizing the rents, negotiating good rents, making sure that you're selective with the tenants that you have in the plazas that you have, having the right tenant mix in there. To if you have plazas, maybe looking at the excess land that you have, maybe it's not a development, but maybe there's an opportunity to put a pad in there and to put like a little drive-through whatever, because there's a lot of franchisees that are franchises that are looking for stuff like that where you might not be able to see. But the biggest thing with plazas right now, you see them all over the place. You'll see a lot of development applications in front of their plazas right now, because that is typically the highest and best use in Toronto. If it's outside of Toronto, you may not see that as much because it's not really there, and I think that's an opportunity to actually buy plazas 6 cap, 7 cap, where you can get some good tenants, and maybe it's years down the road for that. Because what we see here in Toronto, a lot of the people in Toronto who have plazas, they're not selling on cap rates anymore. They're selling on development, and it makes sense from that perspective. So I just think it's just uncovering and kind of like seeing where some of these plazas are located. Like, are there new transportation improvements happening? Is there any plans of any new GO train stations that are planning to be there at a certain time? Like I know a plaza right now in Oshawa. I remember they bought it for like $6 million. It's like a stone throw away from this new GO train station that's supposed to go in, and it's worth a lot more now, right? So I think it's just kind of going where you think the puck is going to go.
So if you have a good highest and best use, how important is the cap rate, do you think? Is
The cap rate is just more holding income.
It's just like
It's not even, it's just holding income. Everyone would rather get a plaza with a cap rate than buying raw land and developing, right? Like they would rather do that. But the cap rate, they're not buying it for the income.
Right.
And even the financing that they're getting is not so much on the income. It's more on the development land, and if they can build within 3 years, then they can do something with it. But if you've messed up the leases and you've negotiated bad leases, putting all gross leases in there, not having separation between net and TMI, and being able to increase rents and all of that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, as well as who covers what in the leases, in the triple net leases in terms of the, improvements, HVAC, all sorts of stuff. So there's all sorts of different things, but it's, each plaza is a case by case scenario.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
My first question is, why is it that commercial sellers, a lot of them prefer for you to have only an exclusive listing and not put it on MLS?
Really good question. The reason for that is because there is for very savvy investors and people who've been around, there's a thought process. If it was that good, it would never have to be on the MLS. And if it's on the MLS, there's a time ticking thing, and the longer it's on there, that means nobody wants it. So it's not so much on, but especially you would never see me put a high-rise site on the MLS unless I couldn't sell it, because I have hundreds and hundreds of developers that I can go directly to, right? And if it's on the MLS, it couldn't have been that good, right? There's got to be something wrong with it. Sometimes that's the thought process. But not to say there's not good stuff on the MLS.
Yeah.
Sometimes some agents list stuff, they don't really know what they have.
I guess, sorry, I'm gonna turn this into 3 questions now.
Yeah.
But I guess, in terms of getting exposure, there's obviously other ways of getting exposure that you could use under exclusive. For example, yes.
You could use LoopNet. You can, but one of the things you asked, I think you had a question earlier about how come commercial agents don't like to talk about certain things, because a lot of times if it's a listing out there and you're aware, sometimes they're trying to sell it themselves, unfortunately, right? And they're trying to sell it through their own. Yeah, they are, right? But a lot of times though, I've met developers and they said, I don't really like the fancy package, because the fancy package means it's been shown around all over the place, right? Sometimes they just seeing things that
Or more raw.
raw, because it means it's more exclusive.
Yeah.
It's no different than a diamond you can get anywhere.
And what are the chances? My last question.
Yeah.
Is it common, so let's say I have a building that's exclusive,
Yeah.
but my seller, he wants future value for it, because he wants to hold on to this property, because in a few years it's gonna be worth a lot more, because today's market is obviously not that good right now. Is it common for people to pay future value? I guess if they want it that bad.
Yeah, but the banks don't look at it that way.
Yes,
The banks, especially right now with financing, they don't care about food. They look at it, what is it right now and what can we do with it right now? And especially in a timing like this right now where everyone's tightening it up, there is a sentiment out there right now that, people are still very cautious. People are not overpaying for properties right now. And if there's one question about how do you sell things faster, you gotta make sure it's priced right, what's gonna sit. Or having different creative strategies in terms of financing, because the financing rates are very high, building costs are increasing. So, a lot of deals that are getting done right now in commercial is vendor financing, where you're actually able to get better rates and they can defer their capital gains tax to later, and it's a win-win solution. Those are the deals that are getting done. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are still stuck in the values that were 3 years ago, and they're not that motivated to change, because maybe they saw an offer that was a lot higher back then, and they're still spending the money in their mind, and it's not there anymore.
Thank you.
Somebody down the street got 10 offers on a perfect listing, and they think theirs is good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that right now.
Hopefully, did I answer your question though? Did I answer your question?
Mine? Yes, thank you so much.
Question.
Yeah.
You're talking about the right mix of tenants.
Yeah.
So what are the right mix of tenants?
Well, it starts off with what tenants you have there now, right?
Let's say plaza, let's say office building.
Office building, okay. Again, it depends on what's there now, but it depends on your building, right? If you have a medical office building.
That's what I want to turn into.
Okay, so, and right now it's just random tenants, or?
60% guaranteed by the government. So government subsidized agents.
Okay, is it government tenants or is it government program type tenants? tenants?
Government program tenants.
Okay. So it depends on what type of program it is, too. Okay, that's one thing. Yeah, it starts off, okay, so I don't want to go into what kind of tenant it is, but it depends on what the tenant is, because sometimes a lot of medical buildings, a lot of office tenants don't really want to be in a medical building, right? So, the closest thing that you can do to transition without you just terminating a lease is maybe start off by a section of the building, maybe a floor or so, and then expanding it from there. But like, it really depends. Like, I tour office tenants all the time. The question that they come up with is, who's in the building? Who's the type of tenants I'm going to go in there with, right? If you have
There's a true pharmacist there, right?
Pardon me?
True pharmacist there, like true pharmacies, like.
So you have, so it's,
Yes.
well, then there's a great opportunity to do that, right? Where you can have medical tenants, bring a general practitioner in there and build it out. But depending on what this government tenant is that you have, it's either gonna attract your medical tenants or it's going to, or it's not going to. And once they find that out, they're not gonna wanna be there because their patients are gonna be coming through, right? So I think that's something to be mindful of, and it's no different than plazas that we have. We have plazas where we have a good tenant mix, but if we decide to, like, we have a 70,000 square foot plaza in Newmarket, Ontario. Very large plaza. We have medical on the top floor. We have retail on the ground floor where we've already leased out everything, and then after on the lower level, we had one martial arts studio and one piano, and after we had like these very large spaces, and we're like, what to do with it? They had no windows, so we decided to we brought a indoor golf facility in there, where it used to be medical, but it has no windows, so no one wants to go in there with no windows. So we got an indoor golf place that came up and took like 7,000 square feet. They're happy in the darkness, and they do their thing, okay? And then after, so we only have like 4,000 square feet left. We had an offer that came in. They wanted to bring a billiards hall, bar downstairs. Man, I have kids down there. I have martial arts. I have golf. I have piano. So we decided we're gonna make downstairs all recreation. So they said they're not gonna have any alcohol in the billiards. I don't know what billiards hall is. Okay. So we decided not to take that tenant, and we're waiting for the right tenant. And now the whole lower level is going to be all recreation. Top level we have mainly medical, and then the ground floor is we have restaurants, we have grocery stores, and now we're able to have a positive mix. But if we put in that bad tenant, it can turn everything. And the same thing when sometimes you have marijuana places that come in and all that stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on where, and it might stop you from getting AAA tenants that comes in, right?
Sorry, just spitting off her. Just spitting off her example. Is there an anchor store for medical buildings, like a anchor?
Anchor. If you get a pharmacy in there and you get a general practitioner in there, it depends on what's there, right? Like,
I should say anchor clients.
You can get anchor clients on all sorts of, like, it doesn't even have, like, anything that's going to attract people to come there and they can do different things, and you can bring a physiotherapy, a chiropractic clinic in there, you can kind of mix it up. Like, there's a lot of plazas that have that in there, but they still have a pizza shop, and they still have other things. It doesn't have to still be there, but at least it still brings traffic to the plaza where people can still utilize what's there and to come in there, right? So it doesn't all have to be all doctors and medical. If there's a way you can attract people to come there and still utilizing the other uses, it can be very successful.
All of those tenants, did you get them by listing the spaces on MLS?
For that particular plaza, we brought our own tenants, but we also had one MLS, and it was really vacant during COVID, and we were able to lease it up fairly quickly and also bring some good tenants in there and all that as well.
Do you ever give them a discount?
Sometimes it depends on what's negotiated, or free rent, or to offset some of their improvements or whatever it might be. Yeah, we definitely do that. Just depends on the landlords. Some landlords don't like to spend money on people's improvements, they would rather give you free rent or fixturing periods for you to offset a lot of those costs.
Awesome. I think pretty much up in terms of timing. Thank you so much. This was so helpful, really insightful. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'll leave a little bit of information
Let's pass it around.
of a little bit about our firm and what we do, and
Yeah.
I'll leave my cards
Yeah.
as well, since we do leasing investment.
What time do you have to call?
Pardon?
What time do you have to call during the day?
Between 9 and 5.
I'm not here now. I'm there late at the office. I'm there all hours. I'm there a lot.